The Jewish Heritage Center also serves as an advocate for anti-racism and education on the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. Our vision is to forge a pathway for the future by preserving and sharing compelling stories and educating the present and future generations. As most of you are aware, the Saul and Florence Kanee Distinguished Speaker Series has been presented annually and in person. However, due to the pandemic, we have converted the venue this year into a virtual series. Also, instead of just one event, we are bringing to you this year a series of virtual lectures. The event this afternoon is the third installment of the series, and we will be bringing you more in the fall. Please stay tuned as we will keep you posted on our website and our regular bulletin. You can find our website at JHCWC.org. That's the abbreviation for Jewish Heritage Center, Western Canada. Again, JHCWC.org. The Saul and Florence Kanee Speaker Series has always been our annual major fundraising event. Indeed, much of our funding has been dependent on generous donations arising from this event. This year, due to the unique and difficult circumstances we find ourselves, we are bringing these lectures virtually, free of charge. However, this doesn't remove the need and importance of donations to our organization. Many of you have already made a donation, and we are so grateful to you for this. I also understand that due to the difficult circumstances that many of you may be in, you're not in a position to donate this year. However, for those that are able, I ask you to consider going to our website and making a donation. Again, you can find our website at jhcwc.org. We do thank you for your past and continued support. We are so very grateful. Without your support, we could not do the things that we do. Also, thank you to the Jewish Federation of Winnipeg for your past and continued support. Your assistance goes such a long way in allowing us to do the work that we do. Before I introduce our moderator, Ben Waldman, I would like to acknowledge that the Jewish Heritage Center of Western Canada is located on ancestral lands on Treaty 1 territory. The Red River Valley is also the birthplace of the Métis. We acknowledge the water in the museum is sourced from Shoal Lake Cree First Nation. I would now like to introduce you to the moderator of this program, Ben Waldman. Ben is a board member of the Jewish Heritage Center of Western Canada and is a journalist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Ben?
Thank you, Mark, and thank you all for joining us for what is certain to be an eye-opening lecture for guest Efraim Halevy. Mr. Halevy's life details are extensive and long, but I will try to sum them up as quickly as I can. He was born in the United Kingdom before the Second World War and arrived in Israel in April 1948, 1 month before Israel achieved statehood. In the 73 years, he has built an extensive career in governance and intelligence, which has given him a very unique vantage of Israel and its role in the world. He has seen it all, and he knows more about it than he can tell us. After joining the Mossad in 1961, Mr. Halevy rose through the ranks to be promoted to deputy the year of the Six-Day War. In 1970, he moved to Washington, D.C. to serve as station chief, sharing with then Ambassador Yitzhak Rabin a key role in fostering the U.S.-Israel relationship prior and during the 1973 war. Later, he led the division responsible for Operation Moses, which brought thousands of Ethiopian Jews to Israel. By 1990, he was appointed deputy head of the Mossad, serving as personal envoy to 5 prime ministers, Shamir, Rabin, Netanyahu, Barak, and Sharon. Yitzhak Rabin supported Mr. Halevy in the establishment of a peace treaty with Jordan's King Hussein, with whom Halevy struck up a close relationship in negotiations. Retirement from the Mossad in 1995 led to an ambassadorship to the European Union, but in 1998, Halevy was called back by Benjamin Netanyahu to serve as the 9th director of the Mossad, a role he held for 4 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I was not kidding. He has seen it all with regard to Israel, and today we are very fortunate to hear what he has seen. Please remember throughout our discussion to submit questions through the Q&A link at the bottom of your screen, not through the chat. If you want to submit a question, please use the Q&A link and we will moderate the questions as needed. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Efraim.
Good evening in Israel. good lunchtime in Canada. I'm very happy to be with you this evening and to be speaking to you. And I hope that we will spend a fruitful hour together. I will divide my presentation into 3 sections, which will add up to between 30 to 40 minutes only, leaving you enough time for Q&A or anything else you would like to raise. The first item I will deal with is the situation in the Middle East today, with a special reference to Israel and Israel's interests. The second chunk will be devoted to Iran. And the third one will deal with the current situation here in Israel in relation to the recent fighting and also possibly to the formation of an entirely new government within a few days. The situation in the Middle East has undergone very, very dramatic changes in the last couple of years. And one of the important events which took place was, as you all know, what they call the Abrahamic Accords, in which a number of states decided to normalize their relations with Israel and to establish open and formal relations with Israel. The Prime Minister of Israel today, Mr. Netanyahu, is the person who led this chain of events together with President Trump. It was a joint effort. And the result was that a number of countries decided to normalize their relations. Mr. Netanyahu called this an event in which peace was exchanged with peace. In other words, at the first time he announced it, it appeared as if Israel was getting something for nothing. But in international affairs, just in private affairs, just in business, just in all our lives, you never get something for nothing. And therefore, within a short while, it became apparent that A, this is not a peace treaty because there was never a war. So if you never had a war, you don't have to have a peace. And secondly, that there were secret annexes to the agreement, the contents of which have not been publicly revealed until this moment. This idea of secret annexes is a very dangerous method to use. It is often used by countries like the Soviet Union formerly and even Russia today, because it enables countries to agree on matters which, if became public, would be very difficult to receive public support for, and B, because it could raise hackles in domestic scenes of those who are members of this agreement. And indeed, very soon, 2 items came up. One was the freeze on Jewish settlements in the West Bank, the confirmation that this was part of the agreement was grudgingly admitted in Israel, but the details of this annex on this subject have never been revealed to this day. So we do not know for how long will this item, will this clause be operational, or in effect prevent operations, prevent increase in settlement activity on the West Bank. And the second was the American decision to provide the Emirates with the F-35 aircraft, which are the state-of-the-art aircraft, which Israel has already received, and which gave Israel what we call the edge, the strategic edge, which Israel has always requested of the United States and has always been honored up to now. But this was not something that Israel was interested in. On the contrary, but it was a very, very major concession because it caused the other countries in the region to believe that if one country could get these aircraft, others could, and especially a country like Saudi Arabia. The countries that joined this Abrahamic Accords were the Emirates, Bahrain initially, and it has to be said in all honesty that these are countries with which we had relationships before. I visited Bahrain in 2000 the year 2000. I met with the leader there, who's now the leader today. We discussed things in great detail. I later met him more than once, and we had a very, very intimate and important relationship with them. In the Emirates, I did not be active openly, but I met people there, and we had, shall we say, passive relationships, which enabled Israeli businessmen to come to the Emirates and to conduct business and to make deals of one kind or another. There is now one other element which now has come to the fore, which was not prominent when this agreement was announced in public, and that is that Israel agreed that we would be a conduit for the massive export of the Emirati oil to the Middle East through a pipeline which had been built in the days when Iran was under the rule of the Shah of Persia. In other words, in the 50s and the 60s. It was used in order to transport Iranian oil of the previous ruler. And when the revolution took place in Iran, it became dormant for a long time. And now we are renewing the use of this pipeline for Emirati oil. And it is going to be a massive transportation of oil through this pipeline. It goes through the south of Israel, the Negev, which is a very, very important part of the country. 60% of the territory of Israel is in the south. If you look at the map, it becomes very obvious from the very beginning. And the fact that we are going to enable the Emiratis to do this is we are entering again a danger zone that there could be a spilling of oil. And we had a major catastrophe about a year or two ago when this pipeline burst in one or two places inside Israel. And B, in order to be able to manage all these enormous oil tankers, we will have to build special facilities in Eilat, which is our southern port, because that's where the tankers will come, and that's where they're going to unload the oil. And this could, in the end, have a major negative impact on Eilat as a tourist resort of Israel. It's the #1 tourist resort of Israel. And not only that, it's not only a resort for Israelis, but it has been the place where many of Israel's tourists coming around from all over the world decided or preferred to stay rather than be in the major cities in the north. So all this means to say that the accords obviously have their pluses and have their minuses. Now, we have also developed relations with Saudi Arabia. Again, I will say these are relations which have existed in the past, but they have been upgraded. There was a hope of the Prime Minister Netanyahu that the Saudis would join these accords. They have not done so until now. And apparently it is a matter which is a subject of disagreement between the current ruler and MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, who is the crown prince and the person who runs the daily affairs, but nevertheless, the king is still there. And Saudi Arabia is going to be a country which we will have to look at very, very carefully in the future. We also have to take into account that in recent times, we have had concerns about Egypt, because Egypt is concentrating to a large degree on developing very meaningful relations with China. China is becoming a growing power in the Middle East, and they look at Egypt as one of the major places where they want to set up a strategic presence. They're already in Iran. They are a major partner of Iran and a major supporter of Iran, and they're in other places as well. And the peace treaty with Egypt is, of course, a solid one, but nevertheless, we have to look very carefully about what is going to happen when the Chinese continue to penetrate into the Middle East and to set up representations and enter activities which also are in the defense field. China has a defense presence in the Middle East as well, which it did not have before. And this, of course, means to say that the Chinese dispute with the United States could have an effect on Israeli relations with China, which up to recently have been moderately good. But the United States now is poised, as you probably know, no less than I do, to up the ante with the present leadership in Beijing. And this is something we have to look at very, very carefully. We also have a very serious problem with Jordan. Jordan is a country which has the longest border of a country with us. We have a very good relationship on the military and defense and intelligence field, a lesser relationship on other aspects. The peace treaty was signed in 1994. I was active in that period as a personal envoy of Prime Minister Rabin to King Hussein. And after the murder of Rabin in 1995, I left the business and went to serve in Brussels as Israel ambassador there. And during that period of time, I was regularly called in to try and to smooth the relationship between the king and Mr. Netanyahu, which was extremely perilous in many times and on various occasions. The relationship with Jordan today on the diplomatic field is very, very restrained. The personal relationship between the King Abdullah and Mr. Netanyahu is very poor, and this is a matter of great concern for the Israeli defense establishment in Israel. And the last thing I want to mention is Syria. Syria in the north. Syria in the north means to say the possibility of a possible war from the north. The Hezbollah forces, who are now very much active there and are training and are developing their military prowess with the support of Iran. We have regularly bombed transportations of Iranian weaponry to the Hezbollah with the coordination of one kind or another with Russia. But Russia has a very major presence in Syria. It has a very big naval presence in Syria, which will be permanent. It has an air presence there, which is permanent. And whereas at the moment, the Russians are more or less allowing Israel to carry out certain types of activity to prevent the Hezbollah from developing faster and more effectively than otherwise they might do. This is not something which is in the bag forever. And we have a saying which comes from the Bible, from one of our prophets that the evil will open up from the north. And the question of what will happen in the north if fighting resumes. We had two major rounds of wars with Syria in 1984 and then 2006. We've had 15 years of peace, but this is not something that we are very confident will last for very long. So that is the second and the last segment I wanted to deal with at the moment. The second segment I want to deal with is Iran. Now, Iran has been on the front line of interest for a very long time, especially after the revolution there. And yes, the relationship between Israel and Iran is a deadly one. And the issue of the Iranian determination to obtain the capability of producing nuclear weaponry, nuclear bombs, is something which is number one on our concern list. The government of Israel decided to oppose the agreement which was reached in 2015, the JCPOA, between Iran and the 5+1, including the United States, under the leadership of President Obama. Mr. Netanyahu fought it intensely. He forced himself upon the American Houses of Representatives and Senate for a joint session against the views and against the will of the President of the United States. This caused, of course, a major crisis between Israel and the United States at the time. Obama did not punish Israel for this. On the contrary, Obama signed an agreement with the United States, with Israel, in 2015, actually, to provide Israel with military aid over a period of 10 years from 2015 to 2025. We're now in 2021, to the tune of $38 billion. It's the largest aid package Israel has ever received from anybody. But after that came in the administration of President Trump. The relationship between Israel and President Trump developed very warmly. Mr. Netanyahu was always, even in his youthful days, was a very great supporter of the relationship with the Republican Party. And in the end, what happened was that on the one hand, Trump produced a peace plan for the Palestinians, and as a result of that, the peace plan with President Trump was going to be a matter which President Trump would be pursuing in his second term of office, which, as we all know, did not materialize. The issue of Iran is a very, very deep-set issue. It moves people to emotional levels, talking of what they call an existential threat to Israel. I don't want to express my view on this term at the moment. If you wish to raise it in the QA, you are free to do so. But what I want to say is that recently, in the last couple of weeks, on the occasion of the changing of the guard in the Mossad, where the former head of Mossad left after 5.5 years of service, by the way, very successful service. I had the opportunity to participate and be present two events where the Prime Minister himself appeared, and some of what he said became public and somewhat less. But I would like to mention one item from what he had to say, because I think it's important to try and understand this man in many ways, whether he will continue to be Prime Minister or not. He is the longest serving Prime Minister in Israel. He has become the #1 after he has served for a longer term than our founding Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion. And he considers himself to be, rightly or wrongly, a historic figure on the scene. He is very much influenced by his late father, who was a historian and who was especially a historian of the Middle Ages, of the Jewish people, Jewish history in the Middle Ages, with emphasis on the Jews in Portugal and Spain, and the ultimate Inquisition, if you could all recall it, when Jews were forced to convert, and many who didn't were killed and murdered. Mr. Netanyahu told us the story that his father had especially researched the activities of a man called Don Yitzhak Abarbanel, who was the most famous figure of Spanish Jewry. He had been the Minister of Finance of the King of Portugal. Then he went on to Spain and became the Minister of Finance of the King of Spain. And then after that, he went on to Italy, and he became the Finance Minister of the ruler of Naples, and afterwards one other city in Italy. And he was also a man who wrote prolifically, and who said in the year 1492, he wrote in one of his books that he was certain that this was going to be the golden age of the history of the Jewish people after they had left for exile. And within months, the Inquisition broke out. And this was something which was a matter which Netanyahu, the father, made his principal books and the principal academic name. And Netanyahu Jr. today has said that he feels that it is his mission never to be in a position of having dismissed or having ignored the threats to Israel. He was there historically to see to it that a threat which is existential is ultimately removed from the face of the earth. It's almost a prophetic mission in many ways. But the fact that we have to conduct serious activities, including all kinds of operations, like an operation which I'm sure you are aware of and you saw when he presented it himself, when the Mossad was able to put its hands on the files of the Iranian nuclear center in Tehran, and to bring these files to Israel and to actually circulate them amongst those who were interested in the West, and to make sure that they realized what the Iranians were all about. The operation was without doubt a very important operation. But all this has given a sense of historicity to this whole issue. And he repeated it twice in the last 2 weeks, as I said, in two events. And what I've given you is the gist of what he said, but he spent a lot of time talking to people. It was a place where originally it was said this was going to be a top secret event, but as many other on many other occasions, what was top secret yesterday became a matter for public knowledge today. On this background, of course, we have other problems and issues which Israel has to deal with today. I understand, and I'm surely aware of that you would like also to discuss the latest round of hostilities between us and the Hamas. And I leave it to you if you want to ask or not. But as I said, I didn't want to go over the time that we have, and I wanted to leave you as much time as possible to ask those questions and raise those issues which are important to you. I rest my case.
Interacting properly, but it suggested that we discuss the most recent flare-ups in Israel and the Gaza Strip between I'm wondering, in the context of Israel's history, its long disagreement with Hamas and with the Palestinian Authority, what does the most recent...
You're not coming across very clear.
Perhaps I'll step in, Ben. You're having some issues with your sound. We can't hear you. But Ben was asking if you could speak to the recent conflict with Hamas and what Israelis are thinking about it and their responses. Were you able to hear what I said?
I heard what you said.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that Mr. Waldman heard. So where do we go from here?
Given Ben's current problems with sound, I'll just continue and I'll take the questions.
Okay.
So the first question was about Hamas and the recent conflict and what the Israeli response is and what people in the street are thinking about it and thinking about Hamas and the role that Hamas seems to be playing.
Well, Hamas came into being in 1987, founded by Sheikh Yassin, and it was originally a movement, a social movement. It was a movement in which gave services to large chunks of the the Palestinian population in Gaza and in the West Bank, and it was very religious. It was not originally a force which was a military force. Do you hear me?
Yes.
They were part of the first Intifada, the first uprising of the Palestinians in 1987-88, and then later on they were part of the terrorist activities which were carried out both by the original Fatah movement of Yasser Arafat and they themselves. Hamas became ever more popular in the Palestinian society because it gave dowries to young women who were going to get married. It established a system, a social system, upon which they could build afterwards their strategic system. They were also members of the Muslim Brotherhood, which was at the one time a force in Egypt for a short time during the Arab Spring, which broke out around 2010, 2011. Now, Hamas became a very, very effective force, especially in the Gaza Strip, which is still under Israel control. And the situation there was that there was a number of Jewish settlements there, which where settlers were living, and they had a very large agricultural output of food and of groceries and so forth. And as a result of this, the tension between the Israelis and the Hamas in the Strip became very, very acute. Israel had growing problems in dealing with the situation on the ground. And then the Prime Minister Sharon, who was Prime Minister at the time, worked out an agreement with President Bush, George W. Bush, whereby Israel would withdraw from the Strip and withdraw also, and that was important because the Americans insisted on it, would withdraw from 3 or 4 settlements, which young settlements in northern Samaria, which is in the West Bank. And they would do it, Israel would do it, not on the basis of an agreement with Hamas, but it would be a unilateral withdrawal. Now, this was a matter of great dissension in Israel, because as I said on something else earlier on in our discussion, I repeat this, in politics, you don't give something for nothing. And here one had the feeling that they got something for nothing. And we established here a kind of a precedent, which is a very dangerous precedent for all concerned. Hamas was prepared to participate in elections. Israel did not agree, did not approve of the fact that the Hamas would participate in elections. But the United States, which was gave its shall we say, its conceptual leadership to this move on behalf of Israel, insisted that if there was an election in the Palestinian Authority, in other words, in the West Bank and in Gaza, at the same time, then Israel must agree that Hamas will participate in the elections. And in 2006, elections took place, and the Hamas won a majority in the parliament. And this began a long, long period, which has lasted to this day, in which there have been no elections in the Palestinian camp. And not only that, after their success and after the refusal of the Fatah to the major force of the Fatah to enable them to participate in government, they arose in the Strip and they expelled the PLO, the official PLO authority presence from Gaza. From this moment on, we began a series of events in 2009, 2012, 2014, rounds of hostilities. And every one of these rounds was more and more complex, lasted longer and longer. And the last round in 2014 lasted 51 days. And we lost several scores of fighting soldiers in the Gaza, in combat. And ultimately, we declared victory, and we reached some kind of an understanding of sorts. But these are all agreements which were reached, which were not documented officially. And therefore, the relationship with Hamas has sort of gone on one way or another, and Hamas has gradually become more and more powerful, and it developed its international relations with Iran, but not only with Iran. Hamas was a very welcome as guests of Russia, and Mr. Putin personally has been meeting the heads of Hamas, and his foreign minister, Mr. Lavrov, has been meeting heads of Hamas. So Hamas became a quasi-state in the Middle East and a quasi force in the Middle East. Now, we controlled all the access to the Strip except from Egypt. So we coordinated with Egypt what we should do to be able to prevent them from developing their military capability. But over the years, they were able to build a massive structure of tunnels from which they carried out their activities. They were able to create a very effective munitions, shall we say, how should I put it, a munitions capability, manufacturing capability of munitions, of missiles, aided by Iran, by the way, with the Iranian expertise. And the end was this recent event, the 10-day event, which took place just a few weeks ago. Now, what happened? Israel used all the force it had, more or less, barring, of course, entering physically into the Strip itself. And at the end of this, the amount of incendiary bombs which were dropped on the people in the Gaza Strip was unbelievably quantities that have never been seen before. 450 tons of explosives that were dropped by over 100 aircraft within 25 minutes on major targets in the Strip. I mean, this is something which is really unprecedented. But what happened was that as fighting continued, this did not cow them. It didn't break their backs, and unfortunately, because of what was happening there, sentiment among the Israeli Arabs began to get unstuck, because we have a relationship with our Arab minority, almost 2 million citizens of Israel, and several cities are what we call mixed cities, like Lod, like Ramle, like Acre in the north. Haifa, by the way, also is a mixed city. And there were serious, not only scuffles, but also confrontations between the Palestinians and us. They were able to cause immense damage in Acre, especially. They burnt down all the hotels in the city. It's a city which was a tourist asset of Israel, and there were serious situations between us, between the Jewish population and the Arab population in Israel at the time. And but what this ultimately led to was that due to a convergence of dates, the annual Ramadan event, in Islam, there is every year a month of Ramadan where the Muslims have a fast daytime and they eat in the nighttime. And at the end of this month, they have a series of days which commemorate various events in the Muslim calendar. It so happened, due to the Muslim calendar, which is not a normal calendar, it's not the Gregorian calendar that we have, you have, that we have, that it moves every year in various months. It so happened that this year, the end of Ramadan happened at the time when we celebrate what we call Jerusalem Day, the invasion of Jerusalem in the Six-Day War. And the result was that there was rising tension, both because of what was happening in the Strip and happening inside Israel. And the Hamas demanded that Israel not carry out a march of Israeli flags through the streets of the old city of Jerusalem, including the Muslim quarter, which was not done till then. And the Hamas threatened that they would shell Jerusalem with their missiles. And when we actually went ahead with this march, they began to shell Jerusalem as well with their missiles. And suddenly, the issue of Jerusalem and saving Jerusalem from the hands of the Jews became a major event, not only in the Muslim area between Israel and the Hamas, not only between the Palestinians and Israel, and not only in the Middle East, but Hamas suddenly assumed the mantle of the leaders of the Muslim world, who are actually trying to save the Temple Mount, which is one of the holiest sites of Islam, not the holiest, by the way. The holiest is in the Kaaba in Mecca, but yes, one of the three major sites. And suddenly, Yahya Sinwar, who was the leader of the Hamas fighting forces in Gaza, became a savior figure in the Muslim world as a whole. And I remind you, what is the Muslim world? You have a large, ever growing Muslim presence in the North American continent, both in the United States and I assume also in Canada. You have large communities of Muslims. You have in India, you have Pakistan, which is a Muslim state. There are more Muslims in India than there are Muslims in Pakistan. And then we have Indonesia, which has over 250 million Muslims. And then you have Iran, which has 100 million Muslims. And you have in Russia, something like 20% of the Russian population is Muslim today, and it is growing. Suddenly, Hamas has become an oversized leader of something which cannot be ignored. And this is a matter in which the government has been grappling with. Whereas the moment I speak to you, the question is whether we will allow the Jewish population in Jerusalem to carry out a march, which they did not carry out as they wished a few weeks ago. This is due to take place this coming Thursday. And it's happening at the very moment that we are now dealing with the final touches to a transition of power between Netanyahu and a new government, which might or might not take place, depending on last-minute deserters who have deserted one camp to another inside our parliament. So we're talking today, this evening, at a moment where so many things are coming together, and we might, by the end of this week, see, God forbid, a renewal of fighting and a renewal of hostilities, or we might see a failure to get a new government passed, and we will more or less find ourselves going to a fifth general election within a period of 2 years, which is destructive in itself. And this, of course, also will have a very serious effect on Israeli relations with the Arab minority again, And more than that, our economy will not be able to recover from the enormous damage caused to our economy by the COVID pandemic, which hit us. And although we were successful in overcoming it at the moment, but nevertheless, the coffers of our Israeli Ministry of Finance are more or less empty now. So all this together has come to a crisis, come to the zenith simultaneously, just as we are talking here this evening. So you chose a very good date for our meeting.
If I may interject, thank you, Mr. Halevy. I see that we do have a flood of questions that have come in, and we'd like to try to get to, obviously, at least a few of those. But and I appreciate the vicissitudes of this type of technology. Ben, I think you've been experiencing some technology issues, and maybe I'll just question Ben. Do you think you have a better connection right now to continue with the Q&A, or should Bell and I perhaps continue at moderating?
You tell me.
Well, so why don't you go ahead? We'll see if you come in all right, if your questions come in all right. Go ahead.
Feel free to tell me.
Yeah, no, Ben, unfortunately, there seem to be continued issues with your sound.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ben. But so
Okay.
perhaps Bell and I.
Does this work better? Or no?
Yes.
It works better?
Yes. So go ahead, Ben.
Okay. We've had a lot of questions about how the coalition government, if formed, would affect Israel's relations with not just Hamas, but with its neighbors. I'm wondering if you could reflect on how this coalition, if it does go through, would impact relationships between Israel and neighbors in all directions and across the continents.
I think that a new government will look at the basic issues which we have, and possibly in some areas, shall we say, refine some of the policies of Mr. Netanyahu. First of all, we are now at a point where within a very short time, the United States will decide to renew the agreement with Iran. This is something which the outgoing government is opposed to. Not only is it opposed, Mr. Netanyahu instructed all the government agencies here not to present our views on the amendments to the JCPOA, because we are opposed to the JCPOA in its entirety. And since President Trump himself, by the way, when he was campaigning for re-election, said that one of the first things he would do when elected, he would renew direct negotiations with the Iranians. The fact that President Biden will do so is not different than what President Trump had intended to do. And this could cause a serious breach between Israel and the United States, which could have a very damaging effect on our relationship with our greatest ally.
So you in your book, Man in the Shadows, that there have been times when events took you completely by surprise, while others you knew about shortly or long before they happened. I'm wondering if, given that context and that experience of foresight and surprise, whether the most recent flare-up of violence in the Gaza Strip was something that caught you by surprise, or if it's something that you saw coming.
Well, I'm not a prophet, although I'd like to be, but I haven't succeeded in that. So I have to do with what I can. I have always been of the opinion. In 2003, I left the government office, and I gave a big interview to a leading newspaper here, in which I said that Israel should enter into a dialogue with Hamas. and I was considered to be a kind of a weird person who had possibly, shall we say, too early on had failures of understanding and was already entering into old age in its more sinister aspects. I have always thought we should negotiate with enemies. I've always thought we should negotiate with Hamas. I'm glad to say that in the last few days, articles have appeared in the press of people who have been violently opposed to my views, who have said, yes, we should try and promote a direct dialogue. Look, if the Hamas is still on paper as opposing the very existence of the state of Israel, but if we do not, my view is that if we do not dialogue with them, we lose the capability of influencing them. And I think that the same goes, by the way, for Iran. I also believe that we should negotiate with Iran. That doesn't mean to say that they will agree to negotiate with us, but we should work on it. I'd like to mention that the Saudis, who are being listed as the biggest opponents of the Iranians in the Middle East, in the Arab world, are now in a dialogue with the Iranians. And that is a matter, by the way, of contention between Israel and the Saudis at the moment. We do not serve our purposes by isolating ourselves and sticking to principles in this. Ultimately, between factors or movements who are in conflict for a long time, the only method of trying to overcome barriers is by secret negotiations. And the example of Ireland, by the way, is a very, very clear case in which the British denied that they were negotiating with the Irish terrorist organizations, when in effect they were negotiating secretly with them at the same time that the Prime Minister was shall we say, forcefully making statements in Parliament that it was untrue, absolutely false, that the British government were negotiating with terrorists.
So 18 years ago in 2003, when you said that Israel should be negotiating with Hamas and should be continuing to have conversations with them, that was an unpopular opinion. And today, that's becoming more and more of a consensus among people who never would have admitted that in the past. We have a question here about how the apparent change of sentiment among Israelis and Israeli Arabs has materialized in recent days. So what other changes have happened due to public opinion in recent weeks, spurred on by what we're seeing domestically right now?
Well, first of all, if we can take the pollsters, who are not always accurate, but nevertheless, it's the only way of looking at things. Several polls which have been held in the last few days, a majority of Israelis support the change of government, although Mr. Netanyahu claims that because he's the leader of the largest party in Parliament, he has the right to form a government, and nobody else has the right to do so. But the fact of the matter is that he has 30 seats in Parliament out of 120, which, in my view, if my arithmetic is still correct, means that only a quarter of the votes went to him. Yes, it's the largest party, but in public opinion today in Israel, there is a public support for the change of government, but the change of government hinges on one or two members of Parliament who are rightists, who are formerly very much allied with Mr. Netanyahu, of the religious kind in the small little party of Mr. Bennett, who was about to become prime minister, and they are still undecided as to whether they would support the government of their own party. And we will only know when there is a vote if they have decided to bring this whole idea down, which means to say we will go again to general elections, which means to say that we will further cause damage to our economy, which is already in bad shape. And we, more or less, we would be in a dismal situation of dealing with the countries of the region, when Israel will be more and more perceived as a country which has an unstable leadership.
So you said that you are not a prophet, and I'm not suggesting that you are. Obviously, there's a lot that's hanging in the balance right now. If you had to wager a bet as to what is going to happen with regard to the coalition, with regard to the quickly destabilizing and restabilizing situation in the Gaza Strip, what would you say is about to happen in Israel? Because I think that's the question that a lot of people participating today and a lot of people who aren't here are wondering. What is about to happen?
Well, as I said before, I'm not a prophet. All I can say is that I fervently wish that this coalition will assume power. It will not have an easy time in Parliament. Mr. Netanyahu will be leading the opposition, and he's already stated he will, if he loses this round, he will, from the position of head of the opposition, will do everything in his power to try and bring the government down. That is also, by the way, a sign of the character that I tried to describe. It's almost a messianic mission that he has, and therefore the normal rules of the game do not apply. If this does not happen, then we will go to another round of voting, which could result in one of two things. A, that the stalemate will be replayed again, or that a large section of people will ultimately decide that they must vote in a way which will produce a definitive winner. And this could mean to say that the smaller parties will not pass the minimum for being represented in Parliament, and the question of whether in the two, shall we say, blocks, which block will ultimately emerge as the predominant block. This could become a very tragic few months for us.
We have one question from Alan Mills, who says that Yossi Klein Halevi recently said that until the conflict is resolved, Israel is obliged to contain the ambitions of the settlement movement. Obviously, the settlement movement is something that's very divisive amongst people. Do you agree with Yossi Klein Halevi's statement?
To contain, you mean to say to freeze them?
I believe that's what the implication is.
Well, that is what the expectation is of the United States. And if this does not happen, I think we really face the danger of a major break with the United States, because I don't have to tell you, you're closer to the United States than we are, that inside the United States as well, and inside the Democratic Party, there's a growing number of members, especially in the House of Representatives, who are Muslims themselves, because there is a growing Muslim community in the United States. And B, there is a very large group of progressives, as they're called, some of them Jews themselves, I mean, who are of the opinion that Israel cannot rely on on Jewry around the world to support it without believing that their policies are policies that they cannot accept. And one of the things that troubles me a lot is the growing gap between Israel and the Jewish communities in Northern America. I will tell you something which I would prefer not to make public, but the fact is public, but the interpretation is not. We have a position in our diplomatic service in the United States. In New York, we have a consulate general in the United States, which is technically subordinate to the ambassador in Washington. But traditionally, the consul general in the United States in New York was an independent figure. And his major task was to be the number one leader in contact and in serving the task of maintaining relationship with the Jewish communities in the United States, and to be the figure that will try and unify the Jews behind Israel. This position has been vacant for the last 18 months because the Prime Minister thought that it was an unimportant post. And if you wanted a one single indicator of how the Prime Minister today views the importance and role of the Jewish communities in Northern America vis-a-vis Israel, there's nothing more glaring than that.
So one thing that us in North America are becoming more and more aware of in recent weeks is that the reports of anti-Semitic acts are on the upswing. Some of these are major, some of them are much smaller, but overall there's a sense that the issue is rising here in Canada and the United States. How is the issue of global anti-Semitism being perceived in Israel by both the government and the population? Because in regards to Israel, it's obviously an important place for Jews around the world, and we're now seeing that Jews around the world are sort of becoming a bit more afraid about this sort of thing and how it will impact them.
Well, I have two ways of answering your question. One is to give you an honest reply, and the other is to be a propagandist. And I'm not very good at propaganda, I'm afraid. I think that if we have a new government, I'm sure the position of the Consul General will be filled very, very shortly, because it's clear that this is a glaring gap. And I think that you'll see leadership of the Jews of the United States in a way that you did not see up to now. And you'll find the government here, including Mr. Bennett, who, by the way, spent many years in the United States, and he originates from the United States, and his parents came from the United States, and he understands the issue of the Jewish communities in Northern America extremely well. And I know for a fact that they're already planning, on the basis of their assumption and their hope that they will get into office, that this is going to be one of their major concerns. So from the point of view of the Jews in Northern America, if this new government gets into office within a very short time, you will see a change here, and attention given to the views and the desires and necessities of the Jews in Northern America. And also you will see a growing attempt to restore the traditional relationships we had with the Jews of North America, not only through the funding of universities and other projects in Israel, but also of all the projects which are bringing young Jews to Israel in all kinds of shapes and forms to get knowledge of the country, to invest in this as an important investment in the future of the Jewish people around the world. And I think that this is something which is a crying necessity. And if, as I said, there is a change, then this matter will be on the agenda, on a pretty high place on the agenda. If not, it means to say we will be having another election, another 3-4 months, and where we'll end up by then, towards the end of the year, I cannot tell you. I don't even dare to forecast what will happen then, because our economy is also teetering on the edge of a major crisis.
So you mentioned several times that essentially what's standing in the way of coalition government coming forward is the opposition of Netanyahu, who you've written about as a stubborn and highly intelligent leader. I'm wondering if this new coalition does come into effect. We've talked about whether it would be better for Israel. We've talked about whether it would be better for Israel's relationships with its neighboring countries. What would the effect be on Palestinians who live in Israel and in the Gaza Strip? Because to me, it seems that the current situation is rather untenable and not something that anybody wants to continue as it currently is.
I agree with you. I think you're right. And therefore, I think this will be a major concern. It will not be the only concern, because I believe that within a very short time, we are going to have to sit down and work out a viable policy towards the Hamas, which is on our doorstep. And the ceasefire is a very tenuous one. No details have been worked out at all as to how matters will be settled between us and the Hamas in the future. What will be our relationship with the Palestinian Authority, which is a problem in itself. It's become a very ineffective body, the Palestinian Authority, except for the security field. There they have been able to create a security force which is effective and very important, by the way. But we will have to do something on that. We will have to take a different position, on Iran, and we'll have to try and pursue it. And we will have to invest in trying to return to our well-known and successful methods of fostering discrete relationships with countries around us, with groups around us, will help us and will help them jointly. I don't believe, as I said, in getting something for nothing. We have a lot to offer countries around us in many areas. Desalination is a serious problem for many countries in the Gulf. In the past, we have been key in helping them solve these problems. We don't have time to go into it, unfortunately, but I spent there, over 40 years ago, I spent time in Oman. I was the first Israeli to come and meet the former king of Oman, the Sultan of Oman, who died a few months ago, and established with him a relationship which was almost similar in many respects to the relationship I had with King Hussein. And Oman is the key state. If you look at the map, it's at the southern point of the Persian Gulf, the Straits of Hormuz. And the fact that we were there and we created this relationship had enormous benefits for us. I don't have the time to go into it in greater detail, but there's so many things which call for activity, which could not be and should not be paraded on on the front stage, as has been the style in recent years, which I believe has not been conducive to, shall we say, deriving the substance we need and not the showmanship we need.
True. So we've established that obviously in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu has been in power for the longest time out of any prime minister in history. We have a question from Bernie Bellin, who's the editor of the Jewish Post and News in Winnipeg, and he's wondering to what extent the leadership of Hamas has changed over the years, and whether there are any chances that a younger element in Hamas will be more willing to negotiate a peace than the standard bearers that have been in power for a while. Is there a chance that having a younger element come up will hasten that negotiation to actually be complete?
But we've never tried it. I've advocated it, but nobody has adopted my views as policy. Mm-hmm. I will tell you this. Many years ago, a leading American diplomat met with Khaled Mashal, the name I'm sure is known to you, who was the leader of the political bureau of the Hamas for quite some time. He's not leader at the moment. And they met in the capital north of Israel, which I will not designate, for several hours. And Khaled Mashal said, I cannot and will not advocate that the 67 border will be the border of Israel that we accept. I will say something else. I will say that temporarily we will accept the 67 borders as the border of the Palestinian state. Now, this is the kind of move that begins to roll the dice, so to speak, because you're already talking in different terms and you're beginning to work out something which maybe in the end will be slightly different or something. But what you're doing is you're working out something which is not permanent, but it is changes the scenery if it's done properly. I think that there are chances for this, but this will not happen under the present leadership, which might be the outgoing one. I'm not sure it will be the number one agenda on the new government, because the new government has, as you know, has a lot of different groups there who have different views on many things, and they'll probably try and concentrate initially on establishing themselves and strengthening themselves by carrying out projects in which they all agree on initially. But I'm sure, but I don't think that events in the region will wait for them. And I have my contacts with some of the people there. I know most of them, or some of them, important people. I know Rapid, and I know Gideon Saar, and I certainly know Benny Gantz, who's now Minister of Defense, and I know a few others as well. But there are several of us who believe that we should be more active once there is a possibility to be active, and to promote ideas, and to create options, and to think out of the box. That is the important thing, to think out of the box. Inside the box, there's no possibility of any resolution of these problems. But we have to be creative, and we have to think about the future of our children and grandchildren, and the future of the Jewish people. And this requires original thinking, and courage, and a spirit of renewal.
Ben, I see it's 20 after 1. Of course, it's 20 after 9, I think, in Israel right now. I think we may have run out of time for any further questions. I'm very sorry. I know, as I said earlier, we're flooded with questions. but I think we'll have to end it here. Okay, Ben?
Works with me.
Okay.
I hope I haven't belabored you too long, and I hope you have not tired too much. But
No.
I was glad to meet with you, and I remember my visit to Winnipeg, and I'd like to visit there someday. I'm not trying to fish for an invitation at this stage, but I think that there's some of us here who are still able to do a few things, although we have somewhat advanced in age. I cannot deny that. But I found out, to my surprise, that even at the age of 86, you can still do things which are of value. So that's what I did this evening with you.
Mr. Halevy, we are so grateful for you to do this again for us. Your time, your experience, your amazing insight. It was so elucidating and so informative. It was a fantastic lecture, if I can call it that. Thank you so much. I really do wish that I could come to Israel and meet you there soon. And of course, I would love to see you in Winnipeg anytime in the near future.
Okay, let's hope.
Yes.
Perhaps I could just add that we did get all these wonderful questions that we haven't been able to include, but perhaps I could impose upon you by sending you a selection of some of these questions in case you would like to answer them, and I could send that on to the questioner, if that would be okay.
I'll try, but I have to warn you, I have another 4 Zooms this week, and similar Zooms, and I have another commitment. If you have a couple of minutes to spare, just to tack on before you go for lunch.
Of course.
I spent time during the lockdown here, and a friend of mine who has a small little publishing house, he was a former intelligence officer who worked under me, has a small publishing house, a boutique publishing house. And he found in a second book bookstore a small copy of a small diary written by Lawrence of Arabia when he was doing a trek in the Arabian desert in the year 1911. And he spent 6 weeks walking around and jotting down every day his activities, which was in a manner which was obvious that he had no intention of publishing this diary. It was some sort of noting all kinds of small little things which are important for him to remember. And I was asked to translate this into Hebrew, and also 3 letters which he wrote to his mother, who was a very important figure. And he was also involved at the time, as he was doing the trek, in working on a big book which was going to be published on the dig, because he was an archaeologist, and he carried out this trip after having a session of archaeology in a place called Karkamish, which is an old city in the desert, and he visited places there which are mentioned in the Bible, but I really don't have much time for this. And I was also asked to analyze this book in the eyes of an intelligence officer. And I found out from the way he was writing, and also deep research, which I had to conduct later, because I didn't have all the papers here. I had a friend in Britain who was very helpful to me, that actually he was at that time on an intelligence mission. And he was carrying out a big operation of intelligence activities in various types. And he was probably one of the greatest intelligence officers of all time. And I wrote after translating it at the request of the publisher in advance, he said I should write a piece of several thousand words trying to analyze what was Lawrence of Arabia, who he was and what he was as an intelligence officer. And that's what I did. And the book has done very well here. I did it for free. I mean, voluntarily. I didn't do it as an act of making a dollar out of it, which I didn't. And I'm not sorry about that. It got very good reviews and so on and so forth. What I'm saying is, time and vision is so important. Also, intelligence. This was a man who saw the future as nobody else saw it, and he had leadership as nobody else had it. And in the end, he was a colonel. He was not a general. He was a colonel. And when he was invited to the Queen, to the King, in 1922, it was. No, 2020. When was it? 1922. Yes, he was invited to the King at the palace in Buckingham Palace in London to receive a knighthood. And he walked in. He didn't know what he was invited for. He thought the King wanted to hear about his trip or what was going on. This was after the war and after all these escapades in the war. And when he understood what was said, and he was given the sword, he broke the sword into two and gave it back to the King and said, "I don't want you to get the knighthood," and walked out of the room. That was the kind of person he was. But when he had his funeral in 1935, half of London came to the funeral, and Churchill, who was out of office then, eulogized him with a beautiful way he talked of him. So what I'm saying is, there is something very unique about intelligence, which I'm trying to sort of impart. Also in terms of what you allow yourselves, what do you allow yourself beyond the call of duty? What can you do to be as a maverick, you know, that you take off your medals and you take off your ranks and you say, now I'm my own boss, I'll do what I think is right. So I'll try and do that as well, if I can, depending on what happens with the government.
Mr. Halevy, your commitment to advancing knowledge and your commitment to ultimately bettering the world is inspirational. Again, thank you so much.
All the best to you, and shalom.
Shalom.
Thank you. Shalom.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ben. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.